Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us as we have the opportunity now to share with you and have one of our MLAs, MLA Chris Saunders, joins us. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email TalkToday at candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us as we have the opportunity to now continue the dialogue and discussion as we have seemingly as a country unfettered access to all of our elected members of our Legislative Assembly. MLA Chris Saunders joins us. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Sterling. It's always great to be here. One of the things, as members of the public would know, that I'm a big advocate that the public business can be done in private, and that also that the people have to be involved in the process. As some members of the public would be aware by now, there's already a referendum that has started that is calling for the people to be involved in the decision-making process with regards to the port. It is not a yea or nay vote on the port, but rather that the people should be involved. I think, based on the lessons that we have learned in the past, especially comes on the capital project, you look at the John Gray High School that has not been completed as yet, and by the time it's completed, it'll probably take 14, probably 15 years since it started for it to have been completed. I think it's important that the people have a say in these kind of things. And one of the persons who have been very involved in terms of going, again, pushing for the people to initiate a referendum, for the people to be involved in the decision-making process. And I think that's the key, because we're not telling people, while I have my own position on the port, which as it stands right now, I don't have enough information, or enough information has not been presented for me to support it. At this point, I at least at a minimum believe that once we make it an issue where the people are involved, I think then more information will come to light. And one of the persons who have been really pushing for it, and I'm really glad that he has been involved with it, is Mario Rankin. And I've asked him to join me here today also, just to give his insight in terms of how it is going so far. I know it's only been a few days, but at least I've seen on Facebook, I've seen some excitement being generated from it. So with that, I'd like to introduce my good friend Mario.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Sterling and Radio Cayman, for giving us this opportunity, which you guys always, give me an opportunity to come in here and share my thoughts on many issues. But to what Chris said, it's important that the public understand that this is just a petition to enact a referendum. And this petition is not for or against. It's for you to have a democratic right to vote for a project that will, affect the Cayman Islands and future generations. So it's important that we be a part of the democratic process. And Section 70 of the Constitution gives us the constitutional right to enact a referendum on something that is a matter of national importance, such as the cruise berthing facility.
The thing about it is, this is one of the motions that we will be addressing next week in Cayman Brac, and that's the reason why I'm guarded in terms of what I'll be saying, because I definitely intend to add my own 2 cents in terms of that regard, in terms of the motion that's being brought by the honourable leader of the opposition. I think is being seconded by the member, the MLA from Eastern, Ard McLean. So that's one of the things that we have spent considerable time on. But I think if you're going to undertake that level of spend, and this is not just for the port, I believe that any spend over a certain threshold, and I think that threshold to be determined, is something that needs to be determined by the people. And the reason why I say that is just from my own point of view, is that one of the things that we have in the Legislative Assembly is like parliamentary supremacy, where no current parliament can't bind a future parliament. So in other words, you can't pass a law today that says no one can change it, or we have the right to move it. And I believe that any decision that is going to be majorly impacting past a 4-year term, where a government can't be answerable at the polls for, is something that the people should decide. If, and once it's outside the life of a government, I think that is something that only the people and the people alone can decide that.
So that from your perspective, that sort of policy initiative going forward may be something that subject to referendum.
Yeah, if you can't get it done within your term, for us to hold you accountable at the polls for it, I think it's something that ultimately is something that the people and the people alone can decide.
Right. As you share that, I'm thinking then that within the FFR there was a certain prescribed DSR, debt service ratio, anything about that the UK needed to sort of look at. Are you saying then, from a perspective of capital projects, if you're looking at our GDP, if you're looking at our annual budget, maybe anything over a certain threshold should be subject to?
Yeah, well, the thing about it is, Sterling, if we go back to the purpose of elections, the purpose of elections is to determine the will of the people. At the end of the day, we served based on the will of the people. Now, I can tell you from my own campaigning that everyone knew going in, and even when I was a member of the UDP at the time, I never supported the port. And I can tell you that there are members within the UDP that still didn't support the port back then also. So it was always one of those issues.
Is the UDP still
UDP, CDP.
Is it the same thing, or is it just reconstituted, or is it something different?
But no, it was one of those issues that not everyone was fully sold. You know what I mean? So and I'm sure that even within the PPM themselves, there are members within the PPM, because I've spoken to members within the PPM who have told me point blank that they have not that they don't support it also. So I think at the end of the day, there's this argument, while it could be said that the ruling government may have 13 members. I mean, unless the Premier is willing to allow a conscience vote on this issue and remove collective responsibility. I mean, Austin Harris is known on record already for not supporting the port. I mean, again, this is something where I think at the minimum, either you put it as a conscience vote, but either way, the people should have a say in this.
But Mr. Harris, although he's not here, we understand he's not the official party whip. If we understand party politics, you would conclude that he would then therefore be in the government's position, right? So that's what you're saying about the conscious vote.
Exactly, but when you speak about Gandhi's, when you talk about 7 deadly sins, is also politics without principles. And at the end of the day, and you see, the thing about it is, Sterling, when you read books like The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and you understand how people run countries into debt to get rich. I mean, I think Johan Moxon made a very good point, where you're giving the port up for 25 years, you're looking at the numbers, you're talking over $800 million of
close
revenues
right?
being given up for something that will cost $200-300 million. So where is the other $500-600 million going over the next 25 years?
Okay.
So I think that in itself is also a very valid point that he has raised. And again, these are the issues that we owe to address once we touch on a people-initiated referendum, and then people who are for and people who are against can now go out and make their case.
Now, Mr. Saunders, as you referenced, the Legislative Assembly will meet in the BRAC next week. There's a motion by the Honourable Opposition Leader. For us now in the public, to help us to understand, the petition is circulating, is just calling for a referendum.
Just a referendum. It's not a decision.
Right. Okay. And the process.
There has to be a difference, because, like I said, we have our own position. And I mean, ultimately, for us as legislators to be pushing for people to initiate a referendum when the people, in essence, have already given us or already entrusted us to speak on their behalf, would be kind of weird. But it's just that we are in the minority. And what we're basically saying to the government is that even though you may have the majority, you are now taking a position that we believe to be the minority position and going against the will of the electorate. Okay. Now, ultimately, and this is where like the efforts of Mr. Rankin is pushing for, where, again, it's not a year nay. It's more like the people need to decide. And I support that, and I'm sure many others also support that the people should have some say in this process. Okay,
I want to ask Mr. Rankin, but first, just for clarity and edification, because I gathered there are some of us who are still somewhat confused. if you don't mind, I don't wish to belabor it, but for a complete understanding as possible, the whole process. There is a petition in the public domain that asking listen, let's go to a referendum so the public, the registered voters, have a say whether to port yea or nay.
Correct.
For that to happen now, this petition needs to garner a number of signatures.
A little about roughly about 5,300 signatures.
Right. And that then has to be accepted by the government, the majority party.
No, yeah, well, once they get the signatures, the government must have the referendum.
Mm-hmm. And then that referendum then has the wording and the like. What happens then? So
the cabinet will decide what the wording and the like will be.
And them alone.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the LA for ratification, for vote. What then? What happens then once cabinet says, yep, the required signatures, the threshold has been met, the public wants a referendum as to whether they want to say yea to the port or nay to the port. But that wording originates
the cabinet sets it, and then pretty much, I mean, like we did at the one vote.
Okay.
I mean, we pretty much have that, the public have their say.
Right. But that wording is determined by cabinet.
By cabinet, that's
so
correct.
They can decide whether they want to put an and a comma, exactly how it is.
It is. And at the end of the day, you got to understand also, you know, that from what I understand from your colleague, I think once we discussed this on For the Record one morning, is that within the UK itself, they're not big fans of referendum.
Right.
They see it as more as an Americanized thing. But at the same time, because they're in a system where, I guess within their own parliament, they, I would say, as they say, they have a little bit more mature representative who are not afraid to go up against the will of the party. And you see the challenge that Theresa May is having right now, even within her own party. You know, whereas here, for whatever reason, and this is one of the things that really, I guess, surprises me the most, is that democracy itself was built on the fact that we will have disagreement. We'll have dissent. But through debate, we come to consensus. And it is decisions that are made through the most heated debates normally brings out the best policy. But for whatever reason, we have a kind of political belief among some, not all, but among some, that the minute I disagree with you on this one issue, it means then that you and I can't get along. You know, it's like there's some issue. Whereas this is what our system called for, is that you put things out there I never thought of, I put things out there you never thought of, and then somewhere in the middle there, we find a policy, we find a regulation, we find a law that is balanced. Here is like they want things done, but nobody wants the debate. Nobody wants the argument. No one wants to hear the other side. Everyone is just focused in terms of, I trust me to make the right decision for you. No, this is not what our system calls for. Our system calls for, let's have a debate. Let's have an argument. And what we're saying is that for this debate, it is too important for the 19 elected people, this debate has to involve the people of the Cayman Islands.
And that's why I appreciate you extending the invite to Mr. Rankin to join. I said to him, you know, I feel bad that he probably got a bad name hanging out with me, because after this he might have much company. Well, he was understandable. I mean,
yeah, politician. Well, that's the worst part. You know, a year and change ago was one of the best things, and now all of a sudden you're a politician. Yeah. But I accept that, because you know what? For centuries, politicians have been behaving bad. For centuries, they've been lying to people and everything else. So,
but Mr. Rankin, your perspective. I mean, you've been a strong proponent of the public having a voice in something. You know, albeit you've shared your views as well. But this process now, sir.
Well, I just want to say that if the Constitution wasn't meant to be used to its ability for people to have an opportunity to exercise whatever right they have within the Constitution, we look at the referendum. If they didn't want us to exercise the right to for referendum, they should have never put it in the Constitution. And if you're going to speak great language as to what is necessary in order to enact a referendum, and we meet those obligations, I think it's imperative for the government to comply, as we did with getting the signatures, or as we will with getting the signatures. The reality is that when we have an issue of national importance, normally, yes, to what Mr. Saunders said, we'd have a dual elected government who we entrust with the decision making of the country. However, when we look at this particular election, is a little bit unique compared to the rest of the previous elections, because here's a situation where the party in power now didn't win the majority of seats within the last general election. They were not the majority. Neither major party won the majority of the seats. So, in my personal opinion, it was a government that was formed amongst those people who was seeking political sovereignty and survival. So, when we have to question the judgment made by the sitting government, especially when it comes to the cruise berthing facility, because it's been many years that the topic been discussed. There's been many ideas and many proposals and many studies done. However, nobody has ever came out and given us something that is satisfactory for the public. And now that we realize that the government's initiative is to push forward with the cruise berthing facility for all the wrong reasons, because they haven't been transparent, which is one of the major things they campaigned on along with the cruise port. Now, we look at the numbers, we look at the environmental aspects, we look at all the things that affect this port. But a lot of people not realizing that if you set aside all the money and all the things that are to be made from this port, we have to look at our tourism product, and we have to understand, we have to make a decision whether we want cruise tourism product in its entirety, or we want to strike a balance with stayover passengers. And somehow, if you look at all the reports done in all of their neighboring countries, Eastern, Central, Western Caribbean, you will find damning evidence that clearly shows you and sorry, I lost my chain of thought. There's a lot of evidence there that sits that clearly shows you what happens to the tourism product and all these other islands when they gear their tourism product towards cruise berthing. So we want to make sure that we do what's necessary for stayover tourism. We want to make sure that we, the people who are gonna essentially pay for this port at the end of the day, and gonna have to deal with the whatever repercussions that come from it. There is pros and cons to everything, but the reality is that now it's time for the people to, for the first time, because one man, one vote was a government driven initiative, and it was successful. So we see now that the referendum has the ability to be successful, where we can have a democratic process, we vote on it, and we move forward. Now it's time for the people to initiate their own referendum for their own reasons and for our own reasons. And again, this petition is not for or against. It's to allow us to have a democratic right and say in the process. So anybody who refuses to sign this petition, or anybody who say they don't support this petition, is a person who is directly not in support of the people of this country demonstrating their democratic right.
And like I said, I think that's important. I mean, for people to understand what the petition is, that, I mean, ultimately, if they, I'm expecting the referendum to be successful, because I expect everyone would at least want to have a say in it. And while I have my personal views in terms of the port, if at the end of the day, if a majority of people hold a position that even differs from mine, then as an elected representative of the people, I am duty bound. Just like what the government would be duty bound to accept the will of the people. And I think an issue as important as this, and having it segregated like this, and having the arguments for, the arguments against, because what's going to happen is this: the people who are for it, they'll be bringing out every argument that they have to convince the people, the best arguments they have, and the people who are against it will be bringing out the best arguments against it. And I think it is only at that time, when we have arguments from both sides, strong points, valid points from both sides, then the electorate of this country, the people of this country, can make a decision. But for right now, to sit down and try to have this country push into more debt, at a time where we're having our own challenges, we have now turned back running deficits. Next year we have the bullet bond that's coming up. You're getting ready to pay down half the debt, which the government is planning to do. And as you pay down half the debt, you're going to turn back right around again and put us back into more debt. We'll already have an unfunded pension liability. We have people who have worked for us for years, decades, that are expecting a payment when they go to retire. That is $200 million unfunded the last time we looked at it, $200 million plus. We have people who have worked for the government for years, for decades, who were promised health care at the time when they go to retire, when they need it for them and their families. People could have made more money in the private sector, gave that up, looking for these benefits upon retirement. That is now, last time I looked at it, $1.7 billion liability to the government. So just between the pension, the unfunded pension, and the healthcare liability, that's close to $2 billion. And if you understand the liability that's due over the next 20 years, that's averaging $100 million per year. So I can't sit down in good conscience, put on more debt on future generations of Caymanians when you already have parents telling their kids when they go to school, don't come back home. So that for us...
After university.
Yeah, after they go to university, don't come back home, seeing as very little opportunities. So we already have enough challenges here as it is to be adding on more. And to this day, no one can say to me, ultimately, how is this going to benefit the people of Bordentown West? How is this going to benefit the people of Bordentown? And how is it going to benefit the people of the Cayman Islands as a whole? And ultimately, if we're all going to pay for it, somebody needs to go out there and explain to them why they're paying for this and what's the benefits to come for it.
Right. Gents, we do have a call online. MLA Chris Saunders with his good friend Mario Rankin, our guests. Susan said there's a call in the queue. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Yeah, good afternoon, all you gentlemen there.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
There's a few little sort of small points that people have not yet debated. For one, you're going to need tugboats. If you have that dock in there, you have tugs to dock those boats. And that amount of people, 6,000 to 10,000 people coming ashore all at once, you're going to be forced to block off 4th Street from regular cars and traffic. But the main thing is, talking about expenses is, on one talk show they talked about the impact of the tide by Marriott and also down by West Bay, by the four-way junction. Now, no one seems to have an impact current or the currents if this dock is put in there, how that will affect the sand on 7 Mile Beach. And I think it would be well for all those condos and hotels and houses on the 7 Mile Beach to look into this and see what impact the tides and things will have on the beach. Because should it happen that the sand is being washed away from the 7 Mile Beach, you won't have to worry about the cost of the port. But what they will sue the Cayman government for will leave us broke for many, many years. And all the services we have, we won't be able to do them, pensions and the like. I don't see why they need this port in town in any case. We have some control now when they come ashore by tenders. But when you have them all docking up at once, it's utter confusion. I knew I used to drive taxi years ago. And days then there were all 5 or 6 ships in. I just left them at home with too much confusion. But that's all, Jim. We can debate that. Tell me what you think about those ideas.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
The caller definitely raised a valid point, and that's one of the things that, I mean, I think when I was at a presentation at the Mary Miller Hall several years back, when this first popped up, that was one of the issues came up in terms of the affected environmentalists, what the environmental impact. And I would love to have Dr. Gina and our team. Yeah. I mean, at least have some input in this process. I kind of have an idea in terms of the environmental impact assessment and everything else. I mean, again, these are the kind of things. But before we even get to that point, one of the things, I mean, that just came out recently is the draft discussion for the National Tourism Plan. Now, again, you're undertaking on an initiative such as this. But I think before you can even decide to undertake this initiative, you need to have a plan first. And if you're just developing a plan that's now up for discussion, what if the majority of the people come back during the discussion phase to say, we don't support this, then what are you going to do? But yet, I've started looking at the plan already, and I noticed there's already a kind of pushing towards the whole cruise tourism. And this is what makes me a little bit uncomfortable, is that there are too many people that are going to, there's some forces here that are going to get very rich at the expense of the many. And this is where my accountant and my / auditing thing kind of kicks in, where you start looking at numbers, you look at stuff, and every red flag goes off. And as I started reading the draft plan for discussion, more red flags just start going up, because I don't like somebody asking me to discuss something, but you can see where framing comes in. And the reason why I'm saying this, if you take the media, for example, people say that the media can't tell you what to think, but the media can tell you what to think about. And they do that through three things. They do that through agenda setting. You take up the front page of the newspaper, there's the headlines. You're now setting the agenda. And many talk shows get up and speak about what's on the headline in the paper. That's them setting the agenda. Then you have basically what you call priming, where they drop you bits and pieces, like a little subliminal message that puts you to where they want you to get you. Then there's framing, where they write the story, it gets you to a particular position. You know what I mean? And I don't like the idea of people sitting down, creating a picture of doom and gloom that if we don't do this, the island is going to fail. When, if you look at the numbers between cruise tourism and stay over tourism, you know what I mean? It is almost a non-brainer in terms of which is more beneficial to the country. But I got a problem when you're going to spend all of this money building an airport and people still getting wet. I mean, just last week, people was either stuck inside the airport, rain was falling like crazy, and people couldn't come off the plane, and people couldn't go on the planes. I mean, in this day and age, that you can't come off a plane and not get wet for this kind of money. I mean, come on now.
All right. Gents, sorry, Mike, we have a break, if that's cool?
Yeah, let's take the break.
All right. Susan's in charge. Let's pause, take a short break. When you come back, MLA Chris Saunders, together with public advocate and good friend of Saunders.
Good friend, brother, you name it.
Name it? All right.
I'll explain to you something afterwards.
Yes, sir. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Nursing, education, social work, media studies, hospitality, electrical, plumbing, AC. Wow, I didn't even know that the University College of the Cayman Islands offered all that.
Yes, all that and more, as well as event management and QuickBooks. They also did customized training for our staff last month. Hey, didn't your son just graduate from high school? Take him so he can apply for the fall semester.
Pursue your academic and professional goals at UCCI. Admissions are ongoing. Classes start August 27th. Visit them or call 623-8224 to learn more.
More than 450 small businesses are members of the Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce. These businesses are the backbone of the economy and Cayman's unsung heroes for creating jobs, wealth and opportunity for future generations. Submissions for this year's Chamber of Commerce Small Business of the Year Award are now being accepted. Apply at businessexcellenceawards.ky. The Chamber's Business Excellence Awards are proudly supported by the Ministry of Commerce, Yellow Media Group and Brett K.
Honey, our fridge has stopped working again. Everything in the freezer is melting. We need to get this repaired right away. I'm calling Brand Source Service.
When you need the very best appliance service, call Brand Source Service at 623-5000. Offering service and installation of all brands and models of appliances. Brand Source Service is Cayman's source for appliance parts and repairs with qualified and experienced technicians and the island's largest stock of appliance parts. Brand Source Service will have your repair completed in a flash. So, whatever the problem is, call the experts at 623-5000. Brand Source Service, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park. Telephone 623-5000.
Advance Automotive is celebrating 10 years as Cayman's authorized Chevrolet dealer and is giving away $10,000 to one lucky customer to celebrate. Buy any new Chevrolet from Advance Automotive and you'll be entered to win $10,000 cash. Entries close 1st of December or after 100 cars sold, whichever comes first. Buy your new dream car and enter to win $10,000 cash for Advance Automotive's 10th birthday. Visit the showroom on Owen Roberts Drive or visit AdvanceChevrolet.com for more details today.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Talk Today. Very grateful to MLA Chris Saunders, Bontown West, right, sir? Yeah, I want to ask again,
West Side.
West Side. You see, boy, he preempted me. He likes to associate with West. You know?
The West Side. The thing about it is, Sterling, I'll say this much. You know, the first time I ran in 2013, at the time when I was a member of the UDP at the time. Well, Mario was a constituent, but for different political reasons, I know he was a supporter of the UDP at the time, but we just never got around to think that. And I heard stories and everything else, and just one day out of the blues, I just picked up the phone and I called him, and I realized that a lot of stuff that some individuals have said, because I'm a person I like to test people on their own merit, was just something completely different. But what really did it in for me was last year. And they always say you can tell someone how they deal with people behind your back. I don't expect anyone to go out there and defend me or anything like that. But, last year there was a particular place where, for whatever reason, someone took great offense to my accent or whatever. And I wasn't there. But Mario decided to really sit down there and defend, I guess, my unique accent to some extent, as, why would that make me less Caymanian or, less whatever? When there were other people out there who had similar accent, but I guess based on a certain skin color was never really an issue. And that really meant a lot to me, where behind your back, someone sat up there and kind of really defended you. Against one of their own friends at the time too. And when news got back to me, Shawnette, my wife, was actually right there when it got back, and even she herself was very pleased. And I like people like that, because at the end of the day, we have people in this country that, and some people may not like it. When the pressure reaches some people, they cow. And people can say what they want to say about Mario, but when the pressure reaches him, if you ever get yourself in trouble or you want someone to have your back, there are very few people that I would say, you know what, I would want out there. And, ironically, you take even Chris and David. Yes, they're on different political sides, where we sit right now. But if I was to go out there and say, if there are two people I would want to go to war with also, would be Chris and David, because regardless of what, these are what we call ride or die friends. When they have your back, they have your back, regardless of what. No, and and you see it too, because you look at their position now. Where their party leaders decided to join Mr. Bush. No one is more opposed Mr. Bush more than the twins. That's well known. I'm sure they've called in enough shows, even the days of Joel when they used to call in. And, their party leaders made a decision, and they're like, what, ride or die. He has made that decision, we're going to go support it. And so when you're going to battle and in these kind of situations, you do need people who have that kind of ride or die, like, what, I have your back. Because at the end of the day, many people tell you, in the workplace, and they see it, they can complain about the issues. But the minute that time comes down, there's always someone that breaks. That, maybe we shouldn't try that now, maybe we shouldn't do that now. So when you do find the ride or die people, regardless of where they sit, you grab them, because it actually makes you sleep better.
Well, that's a sign of a healthy democracy. They can have public discussion with difference of opinion, but people can be protected and acknowledged and recognized for their position. Mr. Rankin, you've been a champion like that as well.
Well, obviously, the harder the fight is, the higher you got to rise to the occasion. And obviously, I'm a firm believer that there's nothing worth having that you didn't have to fight for. But when we take on a challenge like this, obviously we know what we're up against. We're up against the government. We're up against their machinery. We're up against things that we don't have at our disposal. But it takes a special kind of people to stay the course, stay focused, don't get distracted by all of the things that are going to come out of the woodworks, which they already have. We need to focus on what the goal is here. This is to simply get people to have a say of being a part of the process of a project that's going to affect us ultimately. And I want to state, here in public, because I spoke to the deputy governor earlier. On my way into the station, I decided to call him because I want to get some clarity on some of the issues with the civil servants signing this petition. And he stated very clear, and I'm very grateful that he took the time to clarify it for me, and then he forwarded it up with an email with that section of the protocol and the for the civil servants, and he made it very clear. And I want to say it here on the radio. I'm going to quote the Deputy Governor, Honorable Franz Manderson. He said that once you're not a senior civil servant who are involved with policy making, that and you're not directly involved with anything to do with this particular project as a civil servant, anybody can sign this. Only those individuals who are senior and involved with policy making are not able to sign this petition. So I want to make it very clear. So the firemen, the immigration officers, the custom officers, the police, all of those branches of government, every branch of government that is not involved with policy making from a senior level are eligible to sign this without any fear of any victimization within the civil service. So I want to urge everybody to take this unique opportunity, because it's not very often that we have that level of clarity coming from the deputy governor's position, where it's concerning the civil servant's right to be a part of a certain thing when it comes to because a lot of things in Cayman are viewed political. And then you always have a biased position by the individuals who are pushing their agenda. But it's important that civil service have that right and that comfort level to be a part of something that is going to affect them as well, because them being civil servants don't make them exempt to the consequences that is created by the actions of politicians or policymakers. So it's imperative that we stay focused, we be a part of this. If we vote for the port, then we have to deal with it, and then the next fight is to ensure that we get value for money, that we do it the best way, we choose the best methodology, we get the right people. So it's important that this fight is not against anybody or anything. It is for our democratic right to be a part and have and participate in the process.
All right. Sorry, one of the things I just want to add in, and to give credit where credit is due. Mario had mentioned that on his way in, he had spoken to the acting governor, Franz Madison, and that's one of the things I really have to give credit for, because even before being elected, whenever you call him, he will either take a call or he'll return your call. And it says something about him as a person. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, even being elected too, he has not been any different. And that's one of the things, because where else in the world, I mean, let's be realistic. You're coming around to a show as an activist, you pick up the phone, you call the acting governor, he takes a call. I mean, it really says something.
The highest office in the land. Right?
No, it really says something about him as a person, as an individual. And that's one of the things I've really had to give Mr. Madison credit for, is that he takes and returns call. And like I said, for me at the time, even before being elected, it was something that was always appreciated and was always grateful, because he didn't have to do it. He wasn't answerable to me, but he still did it, and I think you got to respect a man for that.
Well, I trust that our public appreciates that, and with access to our politicians, whether it's the premier or the acting governor, whether it's the MLAs, that we don't abuse it, but we use it effectively, and be respectful of the person and the position, right?
Right.
Just for clarity, again, this petition, who is eligible to sign it? Is it
anyone who is a registered voter is eligible to sign it. The only people who are excluded from the eligible registered voters are senior civil servants who are involved with policy making.
Right. So once your name is on the electoral list,
right,
and you're not in that category, then you can sign it.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
No, they can sign it, but there's going to be consequences. Well, if I'm a senior civil servant,
I'm not even going to entertain. I'm not entertain. And that's why I called Mr. Madison, because I did have.
No, I'm just telling you.
I did have an incident where I was speaking to a civil servant, and they raised a concern. I said, well, I'll tell you what. Don't sign it until I get clarity, because I don't want to mislead anybody, and I don't want to put anybody at risk. So.
Okay. We want to clarify, Ms. Susan has fielded a call off here, and we just want people to be as clear as possible. Signing this petition doesn't indicate that you're for or against.
No, all
it says is that we would like a referendum so that the public, the voting public, and at that time, whenever that referendum is, you go to the polls, the ballot box, and you say, yes, I'm in favor, no, I'm not.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Saunders, to you specifically, assuming that this transpires, any sort of timeline when the petition should be presented to the cabinet and then comes to the LA, and then the referendum comes to the public? Is that in a week's time, 10 years' time? What are we looking at?
The thing about it is, I left my constitution in the car, because I always walk with a copy. But the thing about it is, cabinet will then set a reasonable date in which to have the referendum. I know, some people talk about costs. The reality of it is going and doing this, and we've seen it with the airport now, right now, as bad as this may sound, but I can't think of one major capital project in recent history that has been done been done properly, and been done within budget. So there's already a credibility factor. And I mean, one of the things that that boggles my mind, and I'm just speaking again, I look at John Gray High School. I am just perplexed as to how the catchment area for John Gray is West Bay and Georgetown primarily. And you keep sending back the same representatives who have failed to complete a school for your children. You know what I mean? And then you sit back and you wonder why politicians sometimes behave the way they behave. If I try that in Bordentown, I got to be honest here, no district, and I've run the numbers, no district, I've gotten rid of politicians quicker than Bordentown. So that's the reason, whether we like it or not, we up there have to work. So people can say what they want to say, but I can tell you, we have more that we have kicked out of Bordentown and turned back out of Bordentown than anything else. So I'm so glad that Clifton Hunter is finished. So you can try that with John Gray and get away with it, I mean, as the electorate in those districts, but we tried it in the Eastern District, we'd be gone. Yeah,
Mr. Saunders, with respect to the port, and I do apologize for asking this of you, but it's been asked of me a number of times, and I say, well, you know, that's outside my pay scope, right? There are some people who have asked the question, others have alleged, right, that with the port, presumably there's a 25-year period where the ownership, management, control, operation will be in the hands of a private entity.
Well, before we get there, let's start with the cost.
Okay.
And I can tell you what gives me pause.
All right.
We just spent $1.3 million on
a boardwalk.
On a boardwalk. No, that's at the water's edge.
With no engineering technicalities.
Okay. When you look at what that costs per square foot, and you're talking about building something far bigger, out in the sea, that big ships are going to be bouncing against on, and all different kind of stuff. If that little boardwalk costs $1.3 million.
Quarter mile, is it? Thereabouts?
But thereabouts, yes.
Okay. $1.3 million for that, when you work it out per square footage. You're talking about a dock now. If I'm just using that boardwalk, you're going in several $100 million just on the piers.
Easily.
And at the end of the day, what you're still talking about is concrete and steel in the water.
And then you also have to look at the infrastructural upgrades that you have to make on land in order to accommodate. Because if we're talking about putting, sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to cut in,
that's
but
cool.
If we're talking about putting 20,000 plus tourists on our shores on any given day because of the number of ships that are in.
Sorry, that's 20,000?
Well, you have a Genesis-sized ship. I'm just crunching the numbers. If you got two Genesis-sized ships, right? And each one of them bring in 7,000 passengers.
That's 14. Roughly.
That's 14. And you got 4 other ships out there bringing 1,500 passengers, right? You in the tune of 20,000 people.
Yes.
Now, that's almost half the population of the Cayman Islands. So there's going to be a lot of infrastructural strain and upgrades that's going to have to accommodate.
But we also look at right now, at present, a lot of those tourists that come off go to Royal Palms and relax.
And the 7 Mile Beach.
What's going to happen now when that Royal Palm is developed? I mean, where are those people going to go? And equally so, you're talking about Stingrays that already been under stress. I mean, you've cut down one place where people go. You know, so there are a lot of questions that has to be answered.
Well,
and I think this is once we get this referendum going, and both sides come out, I think that'd be much easier then to really
identify all the issues.
Yep.
You're right. And to Chris' point, when the Royal Palm and other beaches that are accessible to the public now and where a lot of the cruise passengers go, what's going to happen is that the 7 Mile Beach, the little small square that they left us with the Mexican sand, that's where all of those people are going to be jetted to. And what happens now, because they're having issues now with the beach chairs and umbrellas and all the stuff there now, that beach is not adequate for any more tourists than already those who already visit there. So again, infrastructural development is going to be an additional cost to the government. And are these private developers who are going to take over the port for 25 years going to then contribute money to the infrastructural development? Because I haven't heard any conversation about them being a part of the infrastructural upgrades. Also, and I just want to make this point for my accountant friend here. What happens if we fail to meet the ROI in the 25 years? Is there an extension? What are the repercussions? What comes? So it's important that we get all the information that surrounds this project so the public can have a better idea to formalize an educated opinion.
Yes,
but I think what has happened is, and you look at what happened in Falmouth recently in Jamaica, I mean, that alone, I think, would give any reasonable person pause in terms of to make sure that we dot every I and cross every T's. Now, gentlemen, unfortunately, I have another appointment.
Mhm.
We have the LA meeting in the Brat next week, and there are a lot of stuff that goes on before we actually get there. So I actually have to run, but I just wanted publicly to thank Mario for pushing this initiative in terms of getting people involved, because at the end of the day, this is what democracy is about, is getting people involved. And like I said, while we have held our own position in terms of what I think we should do with the port, I think at a minimum, a lot of people should be willing to sign this referendum, this petition, whether you're for the port or against. What we're basically saying is that you should have a voice in the process. If hundreds of millions of dollars are going to be spent, you're going to be in debt, your children are going to be in debt, your grandchildren are going to be in debt, at least be able to look them in the eye and say, well, Daddy or Mommy voted for this simply because this is why. And yes, you're paying for it now, but this is what we thought at the time. So I think at a minimum, a lot of people need to be involved in that process. And Mario, just want to wish you luck. And I see you out there in the hustle. You know, and the right
day,
and you put the muscle behind the hustle too.
Wow.
In terms, I think you've gone.
He's a lyric man.
About 1,500 signatures already.
No, not so much, but we have a benchmark, and we want to hit a certain benchmark every week. In my personal opinion, that's the goal. Okay. So, there's a lot of strategy. Thank you, Chris.
We're pausing for the break. Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Thank you, Mr. Rankin. And to our listeners, we'll come back. We'll talk today.
Keep my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Yes, read the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. The leader of the opposition, the Honorable Ezard Miller, today called on government to comply with a raft of, quote, good governance legislation that he says is being ignored, even as government is in the process of executing a number of costly and far-reaching government projects and contracts. Specifically, Mr. Miller is pushing for the implementation of the standards in public life law. In international news, Iran continues to comply with the nuclear deal reached in 2015 with major powers, even after the withdrawal of the United States. That's according to the United Nations Atomic Watchdog, quoting a confidential report. In a quarterly report distributed to member states and seen by the Associated Press, the International Atomic Energy Agency said Iran has stayed with key limitations set in the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The conclusion comes as other signatories to the landmark 2015 deal, Germany, Britain, France, Russia, and China, continue to try to salvage it after U.S. President Donald Trump decided to pull the U.S. out unilaterally in May. Critics of London Mayor Sadiq Khan have been given permission to fly a giant balloon over London that depicts him dressed in a bikini. Organizer Yanni Bruer has raised more than £58,000 through the crowdfunder website for a 29-foot blimp as part of a campaign to oust Khan from his post. Khan angered some people in the British capital and elsewhere last month when he allowed a balloon caricaturing Donald Trump as an angry baby to float above the city while the U.S. president was in England. And an estimated 3,500 mourners crowded into an Arizona church today to remember Senator John McCain after a motorcade bearing his body made its way past people waving American flags and campaign-style signs. McCain died last Saturday of brain cancer at the age of 81. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
nursing, education, social work, media studies, hospitality, electrical, plumbing, AC. Wow, I didn't even know that the University College of the Cayman Islands offered all that.
Yes, all that and more, as well as event management and QuickBooks. They also did customized training for our staff last month. Hey, didn't your son just graduate from high school? Take him so he can apply for the fall semester.
Pursue your academic and professional goals at UCCI. Admissions are ongoing. Classes start August 27th. Visit them or call 623-8224 to learn more.
Attention Breeze Fusion fans and supporters, registration is now open for the 12th annual Grand Cayman Breeze Fusion 5K Walk Run. We're calling on you to help us in raising funds for the NCBO and for the John Gray High School Musical Department. Registration is only $15 for adults if registered by September 30th. The walk run will take place on Saturday, November 3rd at the Smiths Bacadeer in Glen. You must be registered by September 30th to take advantage of the lower fee. Visit CaymanActive.com to register today or stop by Radio Cayman on Elgin Avenue.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back to Talk Today. And as you just recognize, MLA Chris Saunders was here sort of setting the stage. And I don't know, Mr. Mario Rankin, whether he delegated to you or whether he left in your capable hands. Nonetheless, to sort of wrap it up, give us some closing thoughts in relation to the referendum. Mr. Saunders did indicate at the outset that he had a pressing engagement, but he felt this issue with respect to the public being informed of the petition for a referendum with respect to the cruise port was so important that they come out. And I think there's a legislative assembly meeting on the BRAC next week,
right,
where the opposition leader and Mr. McLean equally have proposed and seconded the motion respectively,
right,
in relation to that. But give us the sort of wrap up, sir, and thank you for taking that on.
No, certainly, and I want to thank Chris too for taking the time out and pushing back one of their meetings in order to accommodate. And it's one of the things that we have to all work on is to work together. And this is not a one-sided petition. This is a holistic. Everybody needs to be, involved, get involved, so they can exercise their right to have a say in the process.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say that there are a lot of aspects that are going to come out, a lot of things that are going to be talked about in terms of what's going to happen with the port, and and I think that from an educational standpoint, it's important the public understand these things.
Yeah. Mr. Rankin, my apologies to you, sir. I don't want to delay your time. I know you have other things. But in order to maybe capture the caller, because that could probably factor into
that would be awesome.
Could we just delay you for a little bit longer, sir?
Yes, cool.
All right, let's take this caller. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mario.
Good afternoon, sir.
I just called to tell you that I congratulate you 1,000-fold.
Thank you, sir.
For trying to stop this foolishness. Because, I'm a seaman by heart. I've been there. I know what the sea can do. And if we got enough fools to believe that we can put down anything that the sea can't tear down, they better examine themselves. But to me, I'm going to tell you right straight, I have the greatest admiration for you.
Thank you, sir.
Trying to stop this, because I don't care what we put down in Georgetown. Any day that that people can't be ferried to shore safely by launch, no cruise ship isn't going to tap by any dock here.
That is so true.
And I mean, the common people normally won't be heard unless you put it in something like a referendum.
Exactly.
And we need to educate our people, because once that dock goes down in Georgetown, our tourism is finished.
Agreed.
Yeah, because they can have to dredge. They can have to do a lot of things that they mightn't think of now. But they ain't going to do anything to stop the sea from doing what it has to do. God gave us a beautiful harbor. I don't think there's anywhere in the world
that's right.
that got a sea harbor in Georgetown. 98.9% of the year, Georgetown is smooth as oil.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me where else we have that. You know, I've heard some people refer to the North Sound. Well, we got a gold mine handed to us up there.
Yep.
But if we are fool enough to think that we can't lose it, dredge that big harbor, big channel, and all of that will go. Plus, if we have serious hurricane, that would mean, to me, West Bay and Georgetown.
Yeah.
But God gave us a harbor like, I don't know if there's another one in the world like it. And we think that we have to provide for ourselves. Wrong. God has provided for all of us here, all of our lives. We had some sensible people who realized what we would do to mash up certain places, and the sorrow that we would suck would have no ending. You know, I mean, I don't care who say that we need a harbor. Not so. We got a harbor.
Yep.
What we would have is the destruction of that harbor.
Correct.
And 7 Mile Beach would say, adios amigos. Because you didn't have sense enough to keep me. Now you have paid the price for your foolishness. Get that referendum going.
Yes, sir.
And let's have a go at it.
Agreed.
Thank you for being, interested in our country enough to buck the big boys. Well, you don't have to buck them alone. There's plenty of us will do it.
Yes, sir.
With you. And, the Cayman Island, what a blessed place.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to destroy it. Anyway, Mario.
Thank you, sir.
You continue. And we will be with you. God will be with you.
Yes, sir.
Because He knows that what you're doing is right. Thank you for pushing yourself out there. And all like a guy like Chris,
mm-hmm.
I don't know him personally. I haven't met him. But got a head on his shoulder and a heart for what is right. Thank you, and have a good afternoon and the rest of your life.
Thank you, sir. You too.
Hey, thank you, sir. God bless. Oh.
Well, Sterling, on that note, I want to tell you that I sincerely appreciate that gentleman's sentiments, and I want to ensure him that there are many individuals behind this initiative. We have the Save Cayman group, who has been very instrumental in other petitions and other concerns within the environment and stuff, and they have definitely put their best foot forward in regards to this referendum, this petition for referendum, as did a lot of other individuals who are circled around this movement. We want this to be a people's movement. We want everybody to come together with their abilities to go out and get the education process done, so people could have a better, more informed idea of what their decision should be. And I just want to say, I agree with the caller. I don't think there's another harbor in the world that's natural and that is pretty is Hawkesbury Bay. And and he hit the nail on the head with the North Sound. It's the second largest, in case a lot of people didn't know, it's the second largest safe harbor, natural harbor in the world. It's 7 square miles, and there's only one harbor larger than that. That is a natural, because it's reef protected, right? And it's most countries build barrier walls and reefs in order to create what we have naturally. And we need to ensure that we preserve that, and that moving forward, that we have sustainable development around that we don't jeopardize any of those environments for no dollar in cents. So, yes, it's important that once this petition reaches its benchmark where we can get the referendum enacted, then the educational and the debate process starts on both sides. And I think that's when a lot of the information will come out. But I suggest that the government, should come out and give people the necessary information in order for people to have a more informed position as to what we're dealing with. But again, I just want to say,
no respect for the referendum of this petition. Where do people get to sign it if they want information? I mean,
we have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page. You can't sign on those mediums, but we will be at the Grand Harbor this Saturday all day. And we're trying to verify a few other locations which will be available on the website for information. For those of you that don't have social media, or you don't have access to a computer or a smartphone, hopefully we'll be having more radio spots. Obviously, I know that we're going to have some limitations, but we're going to do our best. We're going to be on all the other media outlets, and as much as we possibly can, we're going to be and we're going to be coming door to door. So when you hear that knock on the door at a reasonable hour, of course, it may be one of the troops out.
Yeah. Mr. Ranking.
So, but again, thank you.
Can we delay you?
Yeah.
Mr. Susan said you have a bank of calls.
Sweet. That would be awesome if I'm allowed to stay.
Susan said, okay, and she's the boss, she's not just bigger than me.
All right.
Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome here on Talk Today. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, thank you, guys. Good afternoon, Mario. And if you have another guest, I think you have Mr. Saunders.
Yeah, he has left.
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am.
Okay, well, call about your petition for the referendum. I'm from the district of West Bay, and I agree with it. That God has placed the Cayman Islands how He wanted it.
Correct.
And we do not need to interfere with what Mother Nature has put. They've given us enough warning by hurricanes and everything, what we need to do. So we need to make sure we know what we're doing. What I would ask Mr. Rankin, if he needs any help to get the petition going, I will leave my number with Dwayne. If you call me, I'll be more than willing to go door to door, and at least in the district of West Bay.
No problem, ma'am. 100%.
I will get a team together and look signatures.
I will call you right after I get off the show.
Okay.
So you can give Sterling or Miss Susan your number, and I'll collect it from her.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Because we need to get it going, because it's way overdue and it needs to be dealt with.
Okay, don't hang up. Miss Susan will take your number as we take the other caller. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
And good afternoon, Mr. Rankin.
Afternoon, Miss Thompson.
Mario, the little bit that we do have left here is so unique, and everybody wants to just come and destroy, what we do have here, and I think enough has been destroyed. I am not saying that we don't need a dock. I know the taxi drivers will probably kill me for this, but I said not into Georgetown, where they're going to put it, I don't know. But we are surviving just how we are, and we have been surviving for years and probably years. And it's really sad to know that everything that someone comes here and says that we need, they are fighting to get it to please everybody and making our lives a living hell to live in this island when that dock is built. We're all going to get drowned. We're all going to get drowned, one way or another, in Georgetown. So I just think you have a good fight, and I'll be signing it. I can sign it 10 times, I will. But the taxi driver will probably cost me out today, but it's okay. I don't have to go home with them. You live in this on home.
This is for all of us, including all of the taxi drivers, everybody, to have an opportunity to have a say. Any more callers?
I think one final call for you, Mr. Rankin.
Nice.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Sterling.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rankin. You know who it is? By the voice, right?
Yes, ma'am.
listen to me. That West Bay woman is just not, but she will leave her number for you.
Uh-huh.
You supposed to have mine already. But listen good to this.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have more than one going around down here.
I calling you right after I finish talking to her. Everybody going to be well equipped with all of what they need in order to get as many registered voters on that petition as possible.
Mr. Rankin.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rankin, I don't drive, I don't have anything to, I can drive, but I don't have anything to drive.
I will come to you, don't worry.
And how it is out there, I don't want to drive, but I willing to run up and down with somebody else.
No
and that woman just now there from West Bay, she got a big bus. Oh, what a ride that would be. Okay?
I'm going to make sure and arrange that you and her take West Bay by storm.
Now, what a story that would be.
Anyway,
Mr. Rankin.
I will be calling you shortly, ma'am.
Okay. Look, I got plenty to tell you,
I know.
I got even more to tell you now, And but look, when you were off Ireland a few weeks back, oh, I'm so glad that you were listening.
Oh, I was listening.
Or watching or whatever you were doing. Because let me tell you, I'm not got no smartphone and all that kind of stuff there, but I got a smart head.
Yes, Mom. Thank God. Right. Hey, thank you very much, Mom. And respectfully, Mr. Rankin, you were sharing your closer thoughts, but thank you for allowing the callers to voice their opinion.
I appreciate all callers, and I think that this is a collaborative effort, and I want everybody involved, and Mr. Bernie Bush from West Bay, who is also, behind us 100%. I spoke to him off air many times, and, we share opinions in many different areas. We disagree in some, but this is one of the things that I know he's 100% behind as well. So it's important that we take this opportunity, because this will set the precedent moving forward. And I'm not saying we should have a referendum for everything, because at the end of the day, if the public is properly informed on all of the aspects of any project that is going to affect the Cayman Islands and its people, that it's the government's duty in order to inform us. Because yes, we elected you, and yes, we expect you to inform us, to give us a better idea, and even make us comfortable, because we're not talking about borrowing a grill, right, where you could replace it if you damage it. We're talking about putting a permanent structure in the heart of Georgetown, and there's a lot of variations to this project that has to be discussed: cost, impact, of environmental impact, tourism product impact, infrastructure impact. A lot of people, I read and this is the last thing I will say, I read in the Compass on Monday of the full page ad, and it was saying that cruise ships are passing us by, and that they're transitioning into bigger ships. Well, of course, now when I read that, I take the time and the initiative, and it motivated me to do some research, which I did. And I was said anything until this point, because I didn't get the information I was looking for until late last night. But all of the existing ships that are in the Caribbean lanes still have 35 to 40 years of life left on them. So I can't imagine that in any time in the near future that we're going to be transitioning out to brand new ships and parking ships that are quite capable of still generating money. So again, there's a lot of variations to be discussed. I think that both sides will be able to conduct themselves with the information that they have and give out accurate information and be able to have a reasonable debate. And I hope that this referendum gives us that clear result, either way, for or against, that we can demonstrate our democratic right as a people. And I hope that the government gets a wake up on the right side on Thursday when they debate in the House in the BRAC and say, hey, let's carry this referendum to the next election. We'll seize anything to do with the port until then. Let the people decide. That way, we already got to have the election, so we can minimize our costs by incorporating it into the next election, as they did with the Constitution in 2009. Thank you again, Radio Cayman, Miss Susan. I really appreciate you accommodating, and Radio Cayman and all the people who are behind the scenes working to make this thing happen. And I want to encourage everybody again. Come out on Saturday at Grand Harbor. We'll be there with a petition and some information packages, so you can have an idea.
Quick question just came in for those who want to sign a petition. I know you shared, they have to be on the voters list.
Voters register.
Do they need to bring anything to say, I'm John, here's my ID?
Right. Well, yeah, we want to have a form of proper identification. We prefer the voters registration card that has your registration number. If you do, and in the absence of that, we just bring a driver's license, we put that down, and then I'll go to the voters registration list and I'll plug in your registration number.
Okay.
But you have to be a registered voter.
So registered voters. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that first.
Thanks.
Enjoy your afternoon, Mr. Rankin.
You too, Sterling.
After today, maybe you should get some good chocolate.
Yeah.
Just telling you.
All right, my friend.
Right. We're going to pause. We're going to take a break. Come back to some open lines. Stay tuned, please.
The Kirk Freeport Clearance Center is now open. Kirk Freeport needs to make space for new season merchandise and is offering clearance discount pricing on a wide range of china, crystal, jewelry, watches, and accessories in a brand new clearance store. Located in the Town Center Plaza next to Burger King in downtown Georgetown, new stock will be added all the time, giving you a brand new clearance store to shop every week. The Kirk Freeport Clearance Store is open in Georgetown now. Outrageous discounts with new stock all the time. Get down early and often to avoid missing out.
RC Fusion featuring Billboard pop hit songs and more from the 70s to the 90s.
RC Fusion.
Weekdays from 10 a.m. till 12. RC Fusion, brought to you by Merengue Town. Take a walk on the wild side. It's time to feel the rhythm, time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town. RC Fusion.
RC Fusion.
Hi, I'm remodeling our bathroom. I have a few questions.
Sure.
What are some ideas to make my bathroom feel larger? How do I know if I'm picking the right vanity? How do I choose a new toilet or a new countertop? Also, the lighting is terrible. Can I put a window or a skylight? And do I really need an exhaust fan?
You've come to the right place. At Brand Source, we custom design kitchen and baths, and our talented design team can help answer your questions. Whether you're looking for a modern, functional family bathroom or a luxurious personal retreat, we'll help create that beautiful space that makes your home yours. And if you're in a rush for a new look and have a limited budget, our ready-to-install bathroom vanities, built with solid wood and countertops of the finest materials, are a quick and easy remodeling solution.
For the very best in custom-designed kitchens and baths, visit Brand Source Home Gallery on Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, Cayman's new kitchen and bath center.
From happy beginnings to happy ever after,
BritK protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
95% of claims settled in 5 days.
Low-cost life insurance.
And investments.
Security in retirement.
With a custodian pension plan.
For happy beginnings and a happy ever after,
visit BritK.ky or call 949-8699.
BritK, where people come first.
The Lions Club of Tropical Gardens, in association with the Cayman Islands Cancer Society, presents Steve Higgins and Friends in Embracing Romance. An elegant evening with Dahlia Winter, April Marr, Amaya Lewis, and Steve Higgins. Sunday, September 2nd at the Marriott Beach Resort, 7 Mile Beach at 6 p.m. sharp. Come hear impeccable performances of timeless love songs, punctuated by riveting, stunning creative dance in a classy, romantic evening. Tickets at Funky Tangs or Super Stitch and Virtue, or call 916-5008. That's Embracing Romance, Sunday, September 2nd at 6 p.m. at the Marriott Beach Resort with Steve Higgins and Friends. Proceeds will go to the Cayman Islands Cancer Society and the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens. Sponsored by Harney's, NCB Capital Markets, S&P, Auger, and Radio Cayman.
We are in the hurricane season, and knowing what to do after a hurricane can be as important as preparing for the storm. After the passage of a hurricane, seek medical attention if it is needed at hospitals and clinics for those persons who are injured. Do not touch power lines and cables that are down. They may be active. Report them to 911 or the utilities emergency hotlines. Broken tree limbs should be removed from around homes or buildings if possible. This hurricane information has been brought to you by Breeze FM and Radio Cayman.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here in this edition of Talk Today. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. It is open line. If you're joining us late, early on, just prior to our news, MLA Chris Saunders was in the studio. He brought along, he shared his good friend, Mr. Mario Rankin, and they were talking about the call for a referendum. So there's a petition being circulated. Members of the public, if you're a registered voter, you can sign the petition. And all that is, according to how Mr. Saunders explained it, the petition is just an indication to the government that we would like, as voters, a say in whether the cruise port should be, yes or no. It doesn't mean that you're for or against it. You're just saying we would like a referendum as registered voters to have the say in whether the port. Once the referendum is triggered and you go to the vote for it, at that point, I guess the question would be somehow, do you support the port and the government going forward? Yes or no? Maybe it'll be that simple. Maybe it won't be. As Mr. Saunders, MLA Chris Saunders, shared, the wording of the referendum would be dictated by Cabinet. And then when that comes to the people, it'll be however it's worded. He indicated that roughly about 5,300 people would be the number that would need to sign this petition in order for it to automatically trigger a referendum that would bind the government to bring forward a referendum. Questions, comments, queries? You want to share your thoughts? Hey, it's open line for the next hour or so. I have to be reminded today that today was Thursday. I'll be honest with you, I was thinking to myself, I know it's not Friday. Maybe it's just Tuesday. And the week has been very rewarding, very challenging, very hectic, but hey, rewarding nonetheless. So it's open line, 949-8037, or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. You can call and share your thoughts. It's open line. That means you can talk about, anything you want to. Other respect, not just to generate interest in callers or to get you thinking and talking, but to share with you as I promised I would. And there are two things. I'm not quite sure why there's an issue. Is it, as one individual said to me today, again, this week, like I say, I don't know what triggered it, if it's anything, but this week, a number of different people have said, do you realize the problems we're having getting to the beach? Not just while we're on the beach, but getting to the beach. A couple of individuals have said, and again, I don't mean this to mean that it's only an issue on the 7 Mile beach, because one individual shared that it is without question a problem, maybe not as bad on the sister islands, not as bad as in the eastern districts, but maybe because the 7 Mile beach is developed. One individual shared that stretch of property that was the West Bay Road. So between the new Clinton, whatever the hotel is called, I keep forgetting it, the On Fire one, something Fire. Susan reminds me, Starfire, Seafire. Yeah, between there and north, going to Holman Corner. What's that called, Miss Susan? Holman Corner, yeah, right there in the corner by this yacht club. That section of road that was the West Bay Road, there's no longer the West Bay Road that was negotiated. Lady said, listen, we know that that's part and parcel, but have you tried getting to the beach now that the construction is ongoing? Well, it'll be improved, it'll be more accessible, maybe it won't be. But that's not the issue. Other properties, the access is, restricted, hindered, limited, gone, altogether blocked, maybe, not as possible, different reasons. But even walking along the beach, a number of properties, were named, and I won't try to inflame the situation, but individuals said, is it a question of overcrowding? So as they're walking the beach, when they get to the public beach, or whether they're south or north of the public beach, the challenges that they're having, just stopping and linger. Maybe this lady said she's out there walking just recently, and there was a school of fish just splashing in the water. And she thought, oh, that's interesting, and only to be told, hey, you can't stand this, louder here, move along. She thought, not only was it disrespectful, but perhaps illegal as well. So that issue of beach access seems to have been something that a number of you have chatted about. The other thing is this issue of uniforms. A few parents, or in particular mothers, now I'm not quite sure, maybe because they're more active, engaged with the children in the homework. Maybe they're the ones that buy the uniforms, dress the children in the morning. I'm not sure. A few fathers, but mainly the mothers, have said, yes, very much in favor of a school code, not just for the dress, but for conduct. We would expect that a child, behaves a certain way, not just deportment and the like, but the child relative to how it's going to do the school work and the honor code that exists, but a uniform as well. Now, a few parents have shared that their concern isn't that there's a dress code. Their concern isn't that there is a dress code that is going to be enforced fairly and consistently, among all students across all schools, so that you know that if you're in this school and you have to wear this particular thing, well, that's going to be how it is for all students. One parent said she's not even worried that that's going to be the issue, because you should at least be able to assume that. The concern is that, if we become so draconian, that was the word that she used, are we going to focus so much on the dress code that there is this push to enforce it because we want the children to look smart, we want them to, be disciplined, what have you, that we're going to take away from teaching? And will the enforcement of a dress code lead to better, outcomes in the teaching and learning? Or will it mean that our children will become rebellious? Will it mean that our children would almost be expected to act like drones in the classroom and limited ability for expressiveness and individuality? Now, she should share that she doesn't believe that a child or a group of children, irrespective of their age or their desire to be individualistic, should disrupt the class, should be given so much attention that the other students are not able to be properly served and their interests considered. But nonetheless, is it that important? Well, what is your view? Is it that, as some of you have shared publicly, we've always had a dress code, and that same vigor at the start of the school year should, as much as possible, be maintained on the last day of the school year as well? Now, one teacher said to me, and I don't think I'm betraying her trust, she said, she has been teaching forever and a day, and she can tell you that by the end of the school year, she's getting tired as well. As much as I think she loves her students, as much as I think she's been celebrated by teacher and by parent and by student, she says you get tired and you're looking forward to that summer break where you can get energized. Maybe you can do some courses. Maybe you can take a well-needed rest. But yes, she has to maintain that same level of energy as best as she can that she exhibited on day one, at the start of the school year. She, on day 155, when the school year ends in June, July, whenever that is, that it ends. But she thinks sometimes being asked by, the principal, by the management team to, measure the length of the girl's skirt, to consider that the shoe is black and not, off black or whatever it is. How important is that? That perhaps that streak of purple or blue or highlighter in the hair, male or female, whether that, hair is shoulder length or it's, I don't believe she used the word chopped off, but that's how I interpret it. Does that really matter? No, she says, very, very adamant that any child, whether boy or girl, when they go into play an activity, and as best as possible, she always takes them any kind of earring or chain that could either get lost or potentially serve as a risk to the child. Even in the class, she says, take them out because anything can happen. It doesn't have to be a deliberate act. So she is very insistent. She says, that's her rule in her class, whether it was a school rule or not, and she's never had any issue with it. Now, sometimes she says, yes, if the child wants to highlight the hair, does that really matter? Now, some children will come back in from lunch and they're all sweating because they're out playing. Now, maybe the age of her students perhaps isn't as important, perhaps for that, student who's about to graduate. But your thoughts? Call and share your views with us if you so choose. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. You can call us toll free if you want. It's open line. We take your calls and share with you if you want to talk about the referendum, you want to talk about the port, you want to talk about and the other issue, including the dress code, as we just referenced. The other thing that this lady shared, she says, she would like to see some mechanism. Bear in mind that this is an educator, whereby teachers, and she understands it's a controversial issue, it's probably more subjective than she would like it to be, but some means to be able to assess teachers, have parents and students equally involved in that assessment process. And she believes that on a whole, we as a community know, quote unquote, are good teachers. And she says, thankfully, there aren't that many bad teachers. Now, she used different terms, but it's perhaps easier to make it simpler by sharing it that way. But even if it's just one bad teacher every 10 years, that's the one bad teacher that we're all going to remember, and it's going to make the rest look bad. And what does it say? It only takes, one rotten egg to spoil a lot, as it were. One bad apple spoils a bunch. Now, at the barrel, she says, we know that there are some people who shouldn't be working in schools or around children. Not that they're not good people, but because that's not the right fit for them. I think she has said to me in the past that educators answer a calling. They are not in there because it's a paycheck. Now, she shared that having teachers being offered greater pay is not just an incentive to attract people, but to retain good teachers. She recognizes that for some, it's expensive. If you're a teacher and your qualifications, your work ethic, and your expertise can position you into another job, perhaps in the private sector and other places where you can make twice or three times what you're making, maybe it's challenging to have that person remain within the teaching profession, whether they're at private school or public school. Perhaps that's why some leave the classroom, where it's their genuine love and the reason why they became teachers in the first place, to take on more leadership and administrative roles, whether within government, in the Department of Education Services, or in the ministry or in other areas, perhaps in the private sector where they move up in the private school administration. They remove themselves from the classrooms because economically they can't survive. So more pay might be something that for them at that point in time in their lives, in their families, is important. But she said, when can we change the ethos and the mindset of our people that our teachers are perhaps some of the most valuable people in our society, and off the bat, we have very competitive salaries because we're looking for the very best who answer the calling and who are going to be accountable, who can be assessed because they're effective, not because their students are all getting A's. Now, she says she's tried to toy with different ways. She remember, in early days of sort of qualifying as a teacher, some of these issues of assessments. And she found that there were some who thought, well, you got to be very careful because popularity sometimes doesn't mean that you're effective. And likewise, because you're a good teacher and you demand excellence of your students, you may be seen as harsh and critical and difficult, and so your assessment may be not as favorable as the other person who's a little bit more casual and carefree, a little bit more, quote unquote, as she puts it, popular with the students. But yet, how do you measure that effectiveness? So that could be a challenge. But she thought, unless we have a healthy respect for our educators, and unless we expect that those educators are some of the very best that the society has, how can we expect to truly raise the bar? Now, she says the unfortunate thing is that we put pressure on politicians to attain results that are, sometimes unattainable, but certainly unreasonable in the time frame. So in less than 4 years, they should turn a system around, when really it's a generational thing. And she shared that too many times we, as parents, and even as she's a colleague, so teachers in the system, we're demanding unreasonable things in an unreasonable time frame, and yet we don't see the importance of having this continuing partnership despite what we share. Now, I must share with you that over the years, her views on education have been very, very sort of influential in my thought. What I like about her is that she is quite willing to take what you say as critical and as constructive as it may be, without it becoming personal and anything less than absolute professionalism. Hey, it's open line, 949-8037. Miss Susan, she's not going to take your order, so you don't have to give her your credit card number, but you can call And as soon as she's ready, we'll patch through some calls, 949-8037, or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. Let's go to our phones. Welcome and good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Very well, sir. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thanks. Not bad at all. Being thankful, you know?
Yeah, man. But if you could ever be accused of judging a man by the sound of his voice, I would say, here's a strapping, handsome, muscular father who is willing to take on the world, and his broad shoulders can carry the weight, man. How are you, man?
You're a charmer, if nothing.
Well, at my height, if you can't be handsome, you can be helpful, huh?
Yeah, that's right. So what caused me to call today is that suggestion that you said you got from a caller or something about parents and students assessing teachers.
Yes, sir.
As an educator by trade myself, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea because for several reasons. For one, the value of a teacher is how that teacher educates the child, but also how that teacher impacts the child's life. And so many people go on to professions in other areas, and when they're truthful, they say it's all because of this teacher or these two teachers or this group of teachers or whatever. That's why I'm so successful, right? And so many times, those kids did not have the academic top results or anything like that, right? And it's always bothered me as an educator that whenever school districts or I taught in the States as well, but whenever school districts or any educational authorities want to assess teachers, they always do it by, they say, we assess you by your results, right? Or we go in and we observe your class. But that doesn't tell the whole story. That doesn't tell the whole story. That doesn't tell the story that, because of this teacher, these 5 students who would never come to school are here, and they have a chance to hear something and to learn something. That doesn't tell the story about, the kid who, is so down on himself or herself that she doubts that they doubt that they can even do anything, but if not for the teacher, now they feel empowered, and just ready to take on the whole world. Those assessments don't tell that story, and I think that a lot of times we sell students short. This is another reason too, because we sell students short, and we don't think that they are capable of recognizing, good teaching. But yet, as adults, whenever we go into any kind of seminar or on-the-job training or professional
right.
You know what I mean, right? And the presenter always gives a survey at the end and says, "Tell me how I did." Right? But we don't give that to students. We don't give that to students and say, "Tell me how does this teacher affect you? Tell me what you think about this teacher." I don't think that should be the end all be all, but I think that should be considered.
Well, you're so right, and the thing is that as you share, I was thinking back to, I was going to say a student, but I have to realize that maybe a student of life, because this is not someone that is, by any means younger than me. He's always shared that there's a particular thing that he always refers to, and it was unfortunately at a time when a teacher said something, and now he has taken that as gospel all along, only to realize in later life that it's not actually accurate. And unfortunately at that time it was maybe just the way the teacher says a particular word, and so he by default says the same word the same way. And so good or bad, that impact that a teacher can have on on our lives. We have to value that. How would we assess, though, do you think, more objectively than subjectively, assess our teachers to be able to determine effectiveness?
Well, see, that's the problem. I don't think there's ever going to be a way to objectively assess a teacher completely. If you're going to assess a teacher and their influence and their effectiveness, it can't be objective. There's no possibility. You can't quantify anything. You can't quantify the difference between a child's attitude before they came into the school year and they encountered this teacher compared to their attitude now that they've gone through that and been influenced positively by the teacher.
Yeah.
You can't quantify any of that.
Can I ask you something, and whether it's something that you can respond to or not, fine if not, but just for the public, a child who is in class, so let's just use September 1 for argument's sake, goes in and up until that point, very enthusiastic, very engaged in the class, perhaps, let's say, as a primary school student, so let's make it much easier, less change. And then on July the 1st, the following year, end of school, thereabouts, through that year, we saw the child become less willing to go to school. We rule out anything in the child's personal life at home and the like. And let's say that there have been suspicion, allegations, questions, concerns that while in the class, whether other students and or the teacher, lack of classroom management has contributed to that child's less enthusiasm, put it that way.
Yeah, see? Yeah, I mean, when something like that happens, to me, that's subjective, possible evidence that the effectiveness of the teacher is 0 to nil for that child, And let's take that same example. Let's just assume that there's 25 students in the class, right? And 23 of those students are performing at or where they need to be, right? And this child is going through what you just described, okay? And then there's another child who's underperforming for whatever reason, right? That child is often overlooked because of the other 23 who are performing, but that teacher is obviously not meeting the need of that one child. They're not. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's an intentional thing. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a gross misconduct or anything like that. But if nothing else, at least the surveys that you give to the child might even make the teacher more aware, of this problem, and then the teacher can be effective. I mean, this could be a world-class teacher.
Exactly.
But students slip through the cracks sometimes.
Yeah. And yet the politicians, policymakers always talk about, no child left behind. Sounds good, but sometimes it doesn't play through. Hey, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. You have a good day now. God bless.
Amen. Blessings to you and enjoy it. And thanks for engaging us. It's open line. When we come back, you want to take an opportunity and share your thoughts with us, we invite you to do so, Miss Susan. If nothing better, you get a chance to say hello to her. I mean, that could be the highlight of anybody's day. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
We need to talk. Okay. We've noticed you've been going to KFC a lot more than usual lately.
And that's fine. We know you love it.
We just don't understand how you can afford it.
The KFC What a Deal menu, starting at just $3.50, gives you lots of great choices and value. Available at KFC Baytown Plaza, Shudden Road, and in the Strand. The KFC What a Deal value menu, the deal everyone should know about. Come to KFC and enjoy a variety of tasty choices at surprising prices. KFC, so good.
CUC advises commercial customers in the Galleria Plaza on West Bay Road that they will experience interruptions to their electrical service from 10:30 p.m. on Monday, September 3rd to 8 a.m. on Tuesday, September 4th, and from 10:30 p.m. on Tuesday, September 4th to 8 a.m. on Wednesday, September 5th. Customers affected include the Saltwater Grill, Azure Reality Limited, Waterman Cayman Surf, Escala, BuySmart, Tropical Optical, and Flow. All other businesses in the Galleria Plaza will not be affected. Motorists are asked to drive with caution when utilizing the Century 21 roundabout next to the Galleria Plaza, as the streetlights in that area and on adjoining roads will be affected during the outage. Temporary lighting will be in place. CUC will also have a number of vehicles and personnel in the area. CUC apologizes for this interruption, which is necessary to facilitate the upgrading of line hardware and utility poles to improve service to customers in the area. For more information on the outage and customers affected, please contact CUC's customer service team at 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
Nursing, education, social work, media studies, hospitality, electrical, plumbing, AC. Wow, I didn't even know that the University College of the Cayman Islands offered all that.
Yes, all that and more, as well as event management and QuickBooks. They also did customized training for our staff last month. Hey, didn't your son just graduate from high school? Take him so he can apply for the fall semester.
Pursue your academic and professional goals at UCCI. Admissions are ongoing. Classes start August 27th. Visit them or call 623-8224 to learn more.
Are you ready to pace yourself? Sunday, September the 23rd on West Bay Road at the Public Beach. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman 7th Annual Delano Hislop Memorial Journey for Life 15-mile walk run. Register today and do your part to help raise awareness for prostate and colon cancer, and also raise funds to help support victims and survivors in the Cayman Islands. Registration fee is only $25. For more information, visit www.lionsgcmpacce.com or call 917-7223. The Delano Hislop Memorial Journey for Life 15-mile walk run. Sunday, September the 23rd on West Bay Road at the Public Beach.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. It is open line. Now, if you're, watching us, interested, with the evolution of technology, you can watch radio. In the studio with me is our colleague Raymond Singh.
Good afternoon.
All right. Hey, thanks for dropping in. It's good. Glad that you accepted the invite to share. It's good to have a little banter sometimes. It's good to be able to have people share with you, even if it's the same perspective that you have. I prefer when people say, hey, what do you think about this? And it maybe cause you to challenge your status quo, your thought process. It maybe cause you to say, hey, no, I never really thought about that. So we have some open line, and our callers, Susan, put some through. We'll talk about anything and everything, but we can talk about a few things, right? Well, let's start off with you. Let's take the caller, Miss Susan. Yeah, let's take the caller, because who knows? That caller might decide that, we don't need a referendum. We might need a revolution. I'm just kidding. Let's just go to the phones. Look at Susan. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today. How are you, sir?
Good, Alan. Back again after the doc. I used to be a teacher. This brings back a lot of fond memories of me.
Yes, sir.
And for one, now when they say they're hiring teachers, they're looking too much at academic qualifications. You got a doctorate, master's. That is not what makes a good teacher. Teachers are born, not made.
Okay.
And if they first go to the schools, and any of those students interested in teaching, get them a job, pupil teachers, right? Because they're fresh and clean, and then you can figure out graduates who will be the best teachers. But you got to start with those children coming out there who weren't interested in teaching, but before they have all their university degrees and all that. I was a pupil teacher, and I was teaching along with Miss Genevieve, the great Miss Genevieve Borden, and Mr. Lever, who was a graduate from Michael. But I'm not saying was a good teacher. My students said I was. And I had a little class at 55. These days they taught much better 5 children in the class. I got to laugh at myself. We had 55 kids in those old wooden benches, and a lot of great students came out of that class, from Miss Carey, who supervised the dump, Miss Reva Dilbert, designer, Mr. McKeever Bush, cars, a whole lot of, that was a very wonderful class. But if I'm going to share one of the methods I used there, since we had so many kids, I would take out, say, the 10, 15 best readers, drill them that I know that you knew it perfectly. Then they each had little groups of 3 and 4. And the same thing with mathematics. And even those bad boys, as they would call them, that miss school a lot because they go on fishing around the ground with their fathers, they had their time as group leaders.
Yes,
and
sir.
The other children would listen so well to them. You know, there's some could read good and write good and all that, but they were yearning for that experience these other kids had about fishing and going in the ground and everything. And they listened to each other more than even would listen to the teacher, because, you know, each one, they had different grades. It didn't matter whether you were talking about fishing and going in the ground, or whether you were top reader and speller, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They each had their time when they felt up at top. So they all listened to each other when they were learning.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. Now, as we go to our news break, perhaps just maybe share your final thoughts with us, sir.
Yeah, no, I just enjoyed it to see that come up. But mainly, like I say, start in the school. Get a lot of those children come out of school and roll them as pupil teachers. And they will supply the next generation of good teachers.
Mm. All right. Well, thank you very much. And then when we come back, Raymond Singh, a colleague here, will weigh in, and I don't know, maybe he'll answer the world's pressing problems. Let's just see. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Follow Radio Cayman on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Do you love fresh, organic veggies? Well, then consider heading up to the newest farmers market in town, the market at West Bay Heritage Park. West Bay MLA Captain Eugene Ebanks said feedback has been positive since the launch of the market, the newest local farmers market on Grand Cayman. The market is open every Saturday at West Bay Heritage Park from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. The UN envoy to Syria has warned of a perfect storm in northwest Syria if the government goes ahead with its threatened offensive against rebels. Staffan de Mistura called for humanitarian corridors to be set up to allow civilians to be evacuated temporarily. With rebels defeated in most of Syria, such an offensive could prove to be the last big battle of the civil war. French actor Gerard Depardieu has been accused of rape and sexual assault by a young actress. He denies the allegations. Absolutely, his lawyer told AFP news agency. French radio reports that the allegations against the 69-year-old were formally made to police by a 22-year-old French actress on Monday. And Argentina's central bank has raised interest rates to 60% as the value of the peso continues to plummet. The currency plunged by more than 15% in morning trading this morning after falling 7% a day earlier. It comes after the International Monetary Fund agreed to speed up its $50 billion bailout to the country, citing more adverse market conditions. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk Today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk Today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. It is open line in the studio here. Joining me is Raymond Singh. Ray, it's encouraging, it's rewarding, sometimes it's challenging because it gets you to a point where you see that there are people who have developed a greater sense of confidence and enthusiasm and their willingness to share their views publicly. And sometimes you sit here and you feel the calls and you go away thinking, wow, it's the health of democracy. Education is a passion for many of us. And as a parent, you get invested in your child's education because you want your child to learn, but not just learn the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic. You want them to learn all those other things, right? I invite you to be a part of a discussion, man. Let's get into it.
The last caller, I think, had made one very, very key point, is that you can't actually make good teachers. Good teachers come from... They come into the world with that gift, and that fuels a passion for them eventually to actually develop. And you can train and upskill individuals who have that passion to become better teachers without fail. And there's many, many ways to do that. But I mean, every child's first teacher is their parents, and that's so it really does start at home because that's where the first passion starts, right? The passion to see your child develop and succeed. And so you made a very, very good point about that.
If I may ask of you, two things. One, is it important, just as we assess students, so we give them tests, exams, different methods to assess that they know the subject, is it important that we do the same for educators, not just the teacher in the classroom, but the administrator, the principal, the board of governors, the board of directors that run the schools, the chief education person? Is that important that we do that?
I think it's important that whether it's important to assess them on their individual skills, sometimes that may not be a bad idea. But as far as the standards that we put to kids, and one of the unfortunate parts of assessments is that it's a very finite system. We don't measure children on their holistic abilities. We take the various segments of life, we dissect it down to these tiny microscopic parts like math or English, and then we measure their ability to take those few steps. But when it comes to administrators and teachers, I think it is important that they are held to the same standard that we put students through. So when it comes to assessment and being able to complete all those exams, if that's the case, maybe. Yeah, absolutely.
And I ask that because I say this with a great sense of pride and responsibility. Over the last couple of decades in particular, the last 5+ years specifically, developing a working relationship with educators, current, those who are retired, public and private, as a way to help me be a better person, improve my interaction and engagement with other students so that I'm as positive, as nurturing, but as honest with them about life. And never want to betray their confidence, never want to. And they have shared sometimes, just like the Latin about who's guarding the guards, but who's assessing the assessor. And some of them have shared that we as a community have unreasonable expectations, we're unwilling to partner, we don't understand sometimes the challenges in the classroom, not just a lack of resource, but sometimes a lack of physical space. I'll give you as an example. A teacher once shared, she was expected to be in a classroom, say year size, with so many students, when really she needed the classroom 3 times as large because of the age of the students and the need to move about. But because of, and my word, not hers, my word, favoritism, right? She was relegated to the small classroom, whereas Johnny was given the bigger classroom because, again, my word, Johnny was sucking up to whoever it was, right? And that infuriated me. Now, I have no horse in the race. I'm not connected to the school in any which way. But here's a teacher who's struggling to find all the resources, the chalk for the board, the little blackboard erase duster thing to wipe off the board, the extra pencil, what have you. And because of something, maybe it's the politics of offices, I thought, can somebody see that and just switch them around? But because, Johnny always taught in this classroom, and today he only has 10 students. But, Sarah over here has 30 students in her class. She needs the bigger class. Why don't we just move it around, As simple as that may be, it was a significant consequence for classroom management. Again, my interpretation.
I may not win a lot of favors with my next commenter.
Come on, man, you're a big boy.
That's what you just said.
Put on your big boy pants.
Well, be very fair.
Yeah.
So one of my passions has always been education. Specifically, I've worked with a number of kids, about 3,000 kids in Cayman alone. Now, I tend to hold teachers to first account, not the administrators, and not even the parents so much. Parents are responsible, without doubt. Parents are responsible for holding account the administrators of the school.
Right.
The school then holds the account the teachers then hold account the students.
Okay.
And that's how I view the linear kind of progression of the schooling. I tend to not give teachers a lot of leeway to make excuses for why they can't do their job.
Okay.
Now, if you're telling me you have no pencils in your classroom, okay, quick timeout. That's an easy fix. You can sort that out. But I find a lot of times, I've worked with a lot of teachers, that they're very quick to come up with excuses for why they can't do things, but expect their students to overcome excuses and overcome challenges to make sure they achieve their grade. And if we're putting the onus on kids, and we say, I mentioned the other day, I tend to lean towards the conservative side of the coin of, you don't get a liberty to make a lot of excuses and blame other people. You have whatever's in front of you, take it and make the best of it absolutely possible, and don't fail. Just keep on going forward. And you have 9 months of the year to make it happen. If 20 of those days are not good days, you still have 8 months of that school year to make it successful for those students. Now, are you actually managing your classroom size properly? Are you managing your resources in your classroom size properly? Are you actually keeping control of your classroom in an appropriate way for those students based on their age? And a lot of times, just those very basic planning stages aren't actually done. I'm not saying teachers are not at fault and they don't have good days or bad days, so to speak. But I put the onus on teachers first.
So that's how you see. My experience has been different in that here are teachers who, for the most part, all in, go the extra mile always for every student. Not every teacher, but just about. And the challenges that they have are usually, up the scale, so to speak. And now, for parents, if I understood your equation, if I may ask, the teacher holding, the student, the parent holding the administration holding the teacher.
Correct.
How is the parent, first in the public school and in the private school, how is the parent involved in this in relation to accountability, holding the teacher, the administration, accountable? How is that parent?
How are they supposed to go about doing it?
Yeah, and how is the parent able to? I mean, give us that perspective.
Okay, well, it's interesting. I'm having the same kind of issue right now with my son's school, and he's in the private school sector.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm very hard on teachers and administration.
Okay.
Just from experience, of my own personal experience in the education sphere, I want to see the best and I believe students learn best in a constructive environment. So having just one child succeed isn't going to benefit anyone. You need the whole class to kind of move forward. You need to know, from a parent standpoint, you need to know what the expectations are from the school for your child. What are they actually going to be learning throughout the course of that, whether it's that 6-week block period, that month period? You need to know it up front. And I find a lot of times teachers and administrations don't like communicating those full loads to parents ahead of time.
Right. So how parents are going to hold accountable?
Without actually having that information. That's what the administration has in the school, has to communicate efficiently.
Okay.
So the parents know ahead of time, for the next 6 weeks, this is exactly what we're going to be working on. These are all the items that we're working on. And here's the best part. Here is your homework assignment for the next 6 weeks. 6 weeks worth of work. And you just give it to them up front. Parents know that way you can digest it ahead of time. You can actually work through it yourself. You're not going piecemeal, night by night, coming home and seeing what little Johnny has in his bag on that given night. Mm-hmm. And if the school were to operate in these, say, 5-6 week block modules, it works out easier as a parent.
Bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, you break down that year. Right now what happens, or tends to happen, at least for my son's school, is we get a homework assignment on a Tuesday. The next day we're going to get the next Wednesday work. And it comes home in these little loose sheets of paper that don't fit neatly in any kind of folder. And for 6 or 7-year-olds, it just kind of gets shoved in. And it's disorganized. From the get-go, parent has to come home, make dinner, and then go through a disorganized piece of paper to go through everything. Whereas if you get it in a 6-week block, you can take a few hours 1 week and sit down and go through it all. And then over the course of those 6 weeks, you work with your child directly with the teachers as need be. Work gets submitted.
Let me share with you,
sure.
And by extension, maybe we got 1 or 2 other people listening, so let's see what trouble we get into. But a number of parents over the years, and again, just recently, because school is starting back, have shared that their experience has been they'll reach out to the school, public school as well as private school, and say, listen, what's going on? How do we get involved? Want to be able to understand certain things. Only to be given, try to find the way one parent said it, but I probably can't repeat that on the air this way. Not because of the... Yeah. But they say it was just lip service, right? So they may send an email and they may get a response, but it's nothing more than just duplicate. If they try to talk to the administration, they're roadblocks. So much so that, and especially, this is what I found it alarming, but maybe it's how it should be. Especially, the older the child, so the further up the grade the child goes, the less willing, this just generally speaking, the less willing is from these parents, they said, the less willing the school, the teacher and administration, the less willing is the school willing to share information with the parent and have the parent. One parent shared that she said, the school said, little Jeannie is getting on and she needs to stand on her own and needs to be responsible. So I'm not saying that. I want to know, do you have a field trip coming up? What's the homework looking like? How's the progress and performance? Not just that she's getting A's or she's struggling to meet the grade. Where are we going? Because we're going to turn out this child at some point down the road. There's going to be a graduation ceremony. We're talking about developing the child. And they found that as the child gets older, the more unwilling the child is to engage the parent. Now, I don't know. More that the less willing the school is willing to engage the parent. All right. I don't know.
I find the exact same problem. I do find that I get a lot of lip service, and I'm one of the voiceful parents. Like, I'm the one that's at all the PTA meetings, at the school meetings. I'm the first one to ask questions. I'm the first one to send emails because I have a vested interest in my child's education, his overall development. And I do find that a lot of time administrations, whether through their own egotistical or arrogant attitudes, or sometimes they're afraid of liability, they're afraid of being sued because they realize they've made so many mistakes. Okay. Whatever it might be, but there tends to be a lot of scenario times when there is this lip service that comes from the administrations. Yeah. And it's unfortunate.
But something I'll leave just before we go to the break. One parent, not the same one I just referenced, another parent shared with me some time back that there was all this negativity about public schools and on the belief, it must be easy and better, much, in the private schools, because that was the presentation, that was the belief. Has now been in the private school for a while and wanted to find out that it is just as bad or less, communication and less accountability.
Far less accountability.
Because, there's no politician that you can go to, there's no chief education officer, what have you. Now, we're talking education. If we're being offensive, call and challenge us. If you think we need to take it up a notch, listen, without your input, what's the point? Miss Susan and I can go fishing. She's happy to go to the BRAC. Me, I'm less happy to go to Miss Norma's office and stand in the corner. 949-837. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Does your business support or organise community projects that reduce crime, protect the environment, or improve the quality of life for the most vulnerable in our society? Submissions are now being accepted for the Chamber's Community Impact Award. Visit businessexcellenceawards.ky and apply today. The Chamber's Business Excellence Awards are proudly supported by Cayman National, Broadhurst Attorneys at Law, and Picture This.
The following is a public service announcement. The Council of the Justices of the Peace Association is pleased to advise the public that general document signing services will be provided 3 days a week in the front lobby of the Government Administration Building. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 12 noon, the following services will be provided by volunteer justices: witnessing a signature on an authentic document, certifying a document as a true copy of the original once the original has been provided, witnessing a signature and completing the portion on a Cayman Islands or British passport application, including acknowledging that the photo provided is a true likeness. Please note, a JP must have known the passport applicant for no less than 2 years before signing the application. Identification cards must be presented, and persons seeking the services of the justices must ensure that proper attire is worn when visiting the Government Administration Building.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. It's open line. It's some open line for the remainder of this program here on Talk Today. Ray Singh joins us, and Ray, education, yeah, man, it's great when we have people, whether a parent who is also an educator in the system, or whether it's an educator who's retired and perhaps maybe doing some, what they call it, supply teaching, or have retired completely and just volunteering, or whether it's an educator who is in the system, public or private. These people are enthusiastic, and as you said, they're impassioned and they answer our calling. Can I ask, again, I want to be careful because I don't want to be inflammatory, but I believe the problem in societies is when we don't acknowledge the truth and do nothing about it, right?
Absolutely.
So an educator said to me recently, almost verbatim what another educator said many, many years ago. In our system, public and private, we know when something isn't working. A teacher isn't doing the job that should be done, and that could be an administrator otherwise. But we don't do enough about it. We don't give the resource that is needed. We don't fire the person, maybe is the word I could use, because for whatever reason. Is that to you an issue that we're ignoring? I got something recently, just to make a point on it. Someone gave me, how do I put this now without betraying confidence, some input from educators in relation to a particular thing. And on there, a comment was, well, we all know the problem, we all know that, and fill in the blank, but nobody's doing nothing about it. Whatever that is, maybe Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so needs to be retired or fired or what have you, or we need to put the building here, move the door there, whatever that thing is. So the answer amongst people who know is obvious, but there is the lack of will, political, economic, financial, whatever it is, to do something about it.
It's a lack of, it comes down to it. Mm-hmm. I think you can take that same statement and apply it across many sectors of society, not just on teachers and administrators.
No.
I think we see a lot of disenfranchisement in a lot of professions. I think it comes down to individual personal laziness. I know it sounds probably bad to say, but when we all know there's a teacher or whatever it might be, that's a problem. But when you go to a PTA meeting and you have 10 parents there out of an entire school body, it is very difficult to administer any kind of effective change on a school level, on any level, if you don't have the overall population involvement. But on a school level, and I've been to a lot of PTA meetings here in Cayman, including currently now as a parent, but as an administrator of different youth programs, I've gone to a number of PTA meetings, and the reality is you don't see a significant volume of the parents at these PTA meetings.
Okay. We have a WhatsApp in, right? Yeah. Could I beg Miss Susan to read the WhatsApp? Only because she has a great... It's just a WhatsApp, Miss Susan. Boy, I have tried so much to engage her. Just read the WhatsApp for her. She has such a wonderful voice. I think we should charge people just to hear her voice. Come on. Would you read the WhatsApp for us, please, Miss Susan? So the listeners can hear. Yes, ma'am. No, she don't be as far. Okay, no, I won't offend you. She doesn't. She is such a public person, but keeps it. Would you, Miss Susan? This is a WhatsApp that has come in that Miss Susan has allowed me to twist the arm so much, and she's going to read it for us. I want to be able to hear her voice, though. Hold on.
Hello, Dwayne. Hello, Ray. How are you guys?
Hello, Miss Susan Watson.
Can you hear me? This WhatsApp person is saying, I regret to admit that I have had the same negative experience, lip service from teachers and administration from the primary and public school. And she goes on to say, everybody suffers when this happens.
Okay. Ms. Susan, thank you for... the reason why is that people hear my voice and it's not as nice as hers, and it is... All right, she's not... Thank you so much, Ms. Susan. People don't believe that she exists because they only know the music, but she's right there. Thank you so much, Mom, for reading out for us. And give our voices a break. But many people, as you've seen, Ray, communicate to us in a fashion that they don't want to be public because, one, they want people to... This is what I'm saying. Don't listen to me. Just can you focus on what is being said? Others feel that they may offend family and friend or others. So when they send in their messages like that, by her reading it, you and I both can test that we don't know who said it. So the message is there. She picks it up and she read it as is. Didn't add anything to it. So thank you for doing that, Ms. Susan. It gives us a chance to hear a better voice. I mean Ray's voice, as good as his is, doesn't compare to hers, man. So thank you for doing that for us. But here's somebody.
The comment is actually 100% correct. And I agree. I think you agreed to that to a certain degree. And there needs to be more than, especially when we're talking about our youth education. The reality is, if by law we're supposed to be putting our children in school, then there needs to be a greater degree of responsibility on administrators.
Can I share one other thing with you and our listeners? You shared just then that there's a PTA meeting, or there's a meeting at school, and there may be 10 parents who you can call on all the time, and they're there always. Sometimes maybe seen as disruptive because they're asking questions or whatever, but they're there actively engaged. Okay. Let me flip it on you, and hopefully this doesn't, because I don't know all the particulars, but again, this doesn't cause people to focus on the wrong thing. So over the years, a number of teachers, and I don't know how it transpires, but I could presume from the comments that there's a meeting amongst teachers. Now, maybe it's all among the same grade, maybe it's across the school. I don't know, right? So I just call it a staff meeting for one of a better reason, because organizations have staff meetings. We have them here to talk about socials, to talk about budgets and targets and what have you, right? So over the years, teachers have shared there's a staff meeting, and that's the word I use, okay? And in this meeting, amongst the teachers, there's a discussion about maybe sports day, maybe it's about a field trip, maybe it's about a particular curriculum matter, maybe it's how we're going to do something in this area. I gather that there are teachers who are very vocal, adamant about certain things being addressed, whatever that thing is. And yet these teachers, again, my interpretation, my impression from what was shared, as polite and as respectful as they may have been, as stickler as they may have been in relation to this thing, sometimes get discouraged and they feel like, what's the point in bringing this up? Because noted and dismiss. Next meeting, noted and dismiss. And these are your teachers. And that thing could be very important to the safety, security, to the education, to the instruction, to the development, whatever it is of the student and the school. If teachers are presumably feeling this at that level, wow.
And the worst part is, Imagine this happens for 10 years. How motivated are you to show up every day and put your 1% in if 10 years of being ignored by the administration happens every time? Eventually, you just stop bringing stuff up. You stop getting motivated about. I've talked to so many teachers who first got into the profession, and their first few years in, and they're all gung ho and they're motivated. I had a good friend in the U.S. who went through the same thing in Florida, and within 5 years, she had just fallen into this pattern of just show up, do the minimum, go home. Show up, and the reality is, if teachers are showing up and doing the minimum, the base minimum, they're not making the constructive change that needs to happen for kids to get engaged and motivated.
At risk, and I'm prepared to be accountable for what I say. I try not to be vitriolic. I don't believe in being offensive and demeaning and the like. It's just not how I am. I'll happily engage you and tell you where to get off if necessary. But to say the true sense of a diplomacy is being able to tell you, where to go and look forward to that trip. All right. So some educators have shared that the problems or the challenges or whatever we experience here, you just mentioned Florida, are not dissimilar to what other educators experience elsewhere. But I've gathered, especially in the Western world, so to speak, right? I've gathered from some teachers recently that there's a growing sense, this may be the last 5 years, I'm not saying it isn't longer, that there are some teachers who've exited the profession, physically left the island or left the profession because of that same frustration. I've gathered that they have said, listen, we know what the problem is, and we have done things to make it attractive, but we've done little to retain. But worse, we've done little to, assess and hold accountable so that we are attracting the very best of the best. So when you are a teacher, your whole society respects the profession because you know those people are going to be teaching your future doctors and teachers and your engineers and your sanitation workers and your carpenters and your, all facets of your society. And then these are the people who are going to help raise the next generation of parents who are going to be helping the existing generation of parents raise their children. Because think of it. Look at a teacher, right? That first day of school, at whatever age we go to school, right, including our preschools and the like, to that teacher on the last day of school, that child is now going to graduate and on to the next phase in life. That teacher has touched so many lives and can impact so many people in such a profound way. And yet, one teacher in particular has shared, sometimes the people that we have in our teaching profession, whether they are educators, administrators, and what have you, from the very first week, we know whether they're cut out for it. By the end of the school year, we know whether they should continue. But yet, we're not doing anything to improve them, teach and instruct, or to dismiss them. And that is a fundamental problem where she believes, her view, she believes that the public system of education isn't attaining the highest standards, and why it's perceived that the public system lags behind the private system, and that they will, in the private system, move that teacher out and on if they don't think it's a good fit. Sometimes, good teachers in the private system leave because of, bad practices on behalf of the school, but sometimes, that dismissal is immediate, whereas in the public system, we move them along. Now, your closing thoughts on that? What do you think, man?
I mean, you touched on a few different areas there.
Oh, yeah.
I think if I can go to one point you made, which was beautifully well said, is if administrators and teachers and everyone from top of the totem pole down to the first year teacher coming in, if everyone remembers that we're not just teaching children, we're actually raising the next generation of parents. And if you change that lingo in your mind, just in how you program in your head, you're not worried about that child the next day and just learning how to read. You're worried about how that child is going to impact the next generation when they become an adult. And it changes just a little bit. Just a slight adjustment in how we view teaching all of a sudden. And all of a sudden the importance of the various elements that we tend to ignore now kind of become a very important thing, because we don't teach parents anymore how to be parents. It used to be a scenario where you actually taught kids how to wear home and everything else. We don't do that anymore.
Right.
And so there's a lot that comes into the picture now of what education really means. And it's a holistic thing. is a scenario that encompasses everything, not just reading and writing, but you want kids who can...
Life skills, man.
Life skills, but even language skills. Reality is, if you're leaving high school in the next 5 years and you cannot speak 2 languages, you are already out of the marketplace career-wise in 10 years. This is the little things, and those are the little things that when you're raising the next generation of parents, what are the things that parents want their kids to do? They teach their kids how to speak. They teach their kids.
See, I'm bilingual, man. I speak Westby and English.
See, I'm fluent in French, English, and I'm also fluent in sign language as well. But it's like there's so many other criteria that come in just maths and sciences, and from administration to parents, both sides need to be held accountable.
All right. Well, let's pick it up. Thank you very much for popping in and keeping my company. I think it's very evident. This was forget, we're on camera, right? So let's hang on, hold tight. It's very evident that I have a healthy respect for the teaching profession and honored that across many different schools. Over the years, I had a chance to engage with the students and the teachers, and to see schools, as we had in the past, come through a program to promote a PTA function, a concert night, a trip to the school has taken, whether locally or just down the hall, whether it's in academics or athletics or arts. Honored to be able to partner. Glad to see that our community still values education. I believe that as a country, public funds as well as private funds, personal funds as well as corporate funds, we expend a lot of money on education. Are we demanding accountability and value for money? Are we prepared, just as we were quick to punish and penalize the politician for doing something, are we willing to do the same as parents to our own, so that we attend the PTA meetings and we ask the questions and get involved? That when the child comes home, we're not just worried that they completed homework, but do you get it? Did you understand this thing? And equally, when I heard again this week that students shared, well, there are 3 questions on the math paper, but the teacher says, no, we're not dealing with number 2 because that's not going to be on the test. Wait a minute, I want you to learn all the 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. All right. Tomorrow, if I still have a job, I'll come back and see you then. No, I'll see you then. Please join Mr. Art Conn in the morning for the record, and come back for Talk Today right after the midday news and midday meditation. And as life reminds us, let's be of value, let's be of good character, let's have integrity, and let's be honest, let's be productive, and above all, let's be blessed.
Voice of the Cayman Islands, Radio Cayman.
We love our listeners. Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.